Hello, my name is Mansoureh Behkish, one of the mothers and families of Khavaran. Before I start my talk, I would like to extend my deep respect to all of you survivors and victims of the Gwangju uprising of May 1980, and those who in South Korea and all around the world have stood up against dictatorship and injustice, sacrificing their lives to build a more human world. Undoubtedly, your quest for justice and your insistence to keep the memories of your fallen loved ones alive is the continuation of their fight for a better world. And I wish you all good health, success, and victory. These days, I ask myself, will the corona catastrophe lead us to a better world to live in? Apparently, the COVID-19 pandemic has mostly affected countries that have a stronger economy, better healthcare system, and more testing capabilities. However, for a moment, imagine if the virus spread in poor countries that are deprived of minimum rights, have weak economies and healthcare system. What would be the consequence for all of us? Can profit-based governments think differently and make human rights and human dignity their first priorities? Why, after all these years of struggle for human rights and the existence of so many human rights monitoring bodies and advocacy organizations, has the human rights situation remained extremely weak? Why is it that whenever such tragedies occur, the most vulnerable are the victims? Imagine those who do not have any saving or support must go to work under any circumstance to provide food and secure shelter for their families. Or think about the people who live in countries like Iran, where the government does not comply with any international human rights norms and standards. How can these people protect themselves from disease, poverty, war, flood, famine, environmental destruction, repressions, and so on, while authoritarian and profit-based regimes are in power? Could we close our eyes to these realities, or at best only think about humanitarian and charitable activities in terms of donations to poor people or countries? Also, when the developed countries control this pandemic, imagine for a moment without a cure or vaccine for all people in the world, and without a democratic solution to improve living standards, the healthcare system, and the human rights situation for all the people around the world. Could the citizens of these countries be safe from the next pandemic? Or all of us will hit harder? Would not this system lead us to the destruction of humanity? These days, my mind have involved with these sorts of questions. Sorry. The COVID-19 pandemic showed all of us that the global political, social, and economic system is very vulnerable and discriminatory. The system is organized in a way to increase the profit of the few wealthiest, not to provide a better life for the people. especially governments that have proposed a herd epidemic policy. They do not care about the lives of low-income people or medical staff. The politicians and their wealthy supporters do their best to protect the existing system. Their accumulated wealth and power has been used for oppression, war, and concentration more power and wealth in their hands, not for the comfort and well-being of the people. For them, human rights is a show, and they will ignore it whenever and wherever it is inconvenient. I hope this risky period forces us wounded people to think of other ways to build a human life for ourselves and people around the world. A world in which dictators and profiteers are not allowed to destroy our existence. On the other hand, over the last few weeks, I read more about the 10-day Gwangju uprising from May 80 to May 27 of 1980. The participation of different sectors of society, women, students, workers, teachers, and to name a few, in a uprising was incredible, and their resistance and cooperation was very inspiring. It reminded me of the 1979 revolution in Iran, what had happened after, and how the Islamic government of Iran violently shut down all universities in May 1980 as part of their so-called Cultural Revolution, and a year after crushed all opposition and critics by mass arrest, torture, and execution of intellectuals and women, student workers, and political activists. I was amazed to learn that the 10-day uprising has been compared to the Paris Commune by some scholars. Like the Paris Commune, the strong solidarity and active interaction that had developed between the people and the political activists during these 10 days made it possible to take over parts of the city and organize heroic resistance. It is very unfortunate that this inspiring and courageous movement could not stand any longer and was severely repressed by the military government. Many fighters were killed, wounded, and arrested. Undoubtedly, this courageous struggle against the military rule of the time, particularly the resistance of the families in their fight for seeking justice, as well as your effort and commitment to commemorate, have become a symbol of solidarity and resistance against tyranny in Gwangju. Their struggle for freedom and justice will be cherished and will serve as an example for future generations. Thousands of our loved ones in Iran also stood up to injustice, oppression, and inequality, and sacrificed their lives to keep alive the struggle against tyranny and for justice. The struggles of mothers and families of Khavaran for truth and justice have started since 1981, when the first series of leftist political prisoners were executed in Iran and buried in Khavaran cemetery. Unfortunately, many mothers and families of Khavaran who had for many years stood in the face of harassment, threats, and arrested by the regime so that they could see the trial of the perpetrators are not longer among us, but the younger generation has followed in their footsteps. This struggle for seeking truth and justice continue in various forms. Here, I would like to remind you of Parvane Milani and Masumeh Daneshmand, two courageous women who came to Gwangju to accept the Human Rights Award on behalf of mothers and families of Khavaran. Unfortunately, Parvane Milani died 8 months after, and Masumeh Daneshmand, Mother Bazargan, is currently in a coma due to advanced cancer. I wish her a good health and a fast recovery. I and many other the mothers and families of Khavaran hope that these struggles to seek truth and justice will one day bear fruit, and that the facts will be clarified, so that we will be able to bring the perpetrators to justice to prevent recurrence of these sorts of crimes in Iran. If and when all of this happens, we will achieve freedom and justice. We hope that one day our people can live in freedom, justice, peace, and prosperity. Long live the memory of all those who fought for freedom, equality, and justice. Let's be victors.